Hey guys, Arleesha here, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be walking you through the process of turning this original piece here, which you may have seen me paint in a recent video, into the print that you see over on the right. This piece was originally painted in gouache, and because I don't know much about the light fastness of the actual paint, I don't really want to sell the original, but that doesn't mean that I can't still make products from the piece. So I'm going to be walking you through scanning and editing and printing and cutting and packing this whole thing. The first step is to take my original and stick it up into my scanner, way up there on that super high shelf. The scanner that I'm using is the Epson V550 photo scanner, so let's go ahead and jump into my computer to see what's next. So once the artwork is in the scanner, I'm going to use Epson Scan, the software that comes with the scanner, and I always scan in my artwork at 600 dpi, so I have a high enough resolution that I can crop little bits out if I want to use them for something else. And I'm going to hit preview as well. This is going to generate a quick preview for me of what it will look like when my image is scanned, and I'm going to select mostly just the artwork area with a little bit of wiggle room around the outside. This is going to make the final scan go faster and also make color correction a little bit easier. At least it has in my experience. So this is the area that I want to select just the artwork, and I don't want to scan any of this outside area. I'm going to save this as a TIFF file so I know I have plenty of information to work with, and then hit OK. When that is completely finished, it'll show up here in with all of my other scans, and I just noticed I saved this one differently. That's alright, it's the first scan on my new computer. So I'm going to take this TIFF file and open it in Photoshop. And here's our artwork all scanned. At this point, I'm going to adjust the cropping so that I have only the artwork. If I want to get really fine-tuned and very specific, I can zoom in to make sure I'm not losing anything. So I can zoom in super far to fine tune the crop. And the first crop isn't to any particular dimensions, I just want to have the artwork. So here is just the art all cropped. I'll kind of look and see if I want to adjust this edge here where there's a little bit of white showing, and I do think I'm going to bring that in a tiny bit. Like that. I'm zoomed in really far right now just so I can get the crop how I want it. Alright, so here's the full artwork. And here I can see more of the texture of like tiny little water spots that were on the painting, tiny little things. And you can decide if these are imperfections to you. To me, it's just part of what the painting is. That's just how it looks. But what does count as an imperfection for me are spots like here. This little dark spot here is actually just from maybe some dust from the scanner or something like that. So I'm going to use the stamp tool to select an area next to it and just kind of stamp that out with a similar color, so that's gone. And I'll look over the whole artwork for any other little bits of dust or tiny little things that I don't want to be on the final print. I try not to adjust the artwork itself too much, like spots here where this line isn't clean. I know I could change that, or spots like here. So this one I'll change like that. I can make that cleaner. And I could do the same over here if I really wanted to. I could clean up this edge. But the problem with doing something like that, in my opinion, is I'm changing the artwork from what it was into something a little bit different. So sometimes I like to leave the little imperfections just because it's just part of what the art was and what it is. So the stamp tool makes it really easy to get in and fix up little bits of dust or tiny little spots where there might be a hair or something on my scanner. And there we go. This looks pretty good now. This is the point where I would also adjust any colors that I wanted to change. So if I wanted to deepen the values, I can use the levels tool here. Bring them up a little bit brighter. So you can see not a huge difference, just a little bit brighter. And then I can deepen the color here. I'm pretty much always going to have to do at least one test print that may not be the final print, which is fine. So I'm just making some initial adjustments. I also bump up the saturation a little bit because I tend to lose some when I scan. So this is with the saturation all the way down, it'd be black and white. All the way up, it would be crazy intense. So right here is around the middle, and I'm just going to go up a tiny bit, maybe 7 or 8. And now that I have my levels adjusted and the colors adjusted roughly, I'm going to save this. And this will be saved as a PSD, and it's not going to be saved in my scans folder anymore. I'm going to save it with my other prints. Once I have that saved as a PSD, I will have that file that I can always go back on and make changes to. That's kind of the master file at this point. And now I'm going to crop it down to print sizes. So I'm going to start with 5x7, and you'll see the primary thing that I'm going to be losing is information on the top and on the bottom. I could kind of lessen the amount of information I lose by adding white borders. I do borderless prints just because that's my personal preference. I know it doesn't make framing super easy, but that's what I do, and I always make sure my customers know that my prints are going to be borderless, meaning they won't have any white around the outside. So I just have to find a comfortable place for cropping. You could avoid the cropping entirely. If you make your painting a specific size when you're first getting started, I usually don't do that. That's okay. I just work with the way I like to create things and try not to apologize for that. So this is now cropped to 5x7, and I'm going to go up to image size. So at this point, I will adjust the resolution to 300 dpi and make sure that it is 5x7 inches, because now we're getting into just a standard print size. I like to kind of zoom out to see if there's anything that strikes me from far away as being wrong with this. And then I can come in close and kind of look at it from a couple different viewpoints. So this is looking fine to me, and then I'll save this as the same title, but with 5x7 at the end. So I know that this is the 5x7, and it's not going to overwrite my original higher resolution file. Okay, so that's saved, and then I'll also save that as a PNG for printing. I know that technically this is an RGB file type and printers use CMYK, so I should technically be using a file type that is CMYK, so it's a different color profile, but I've been printing this way for so long and it just works for me. I'm happy with the colors and how they turn out. I just don't want to change it. So this is how I do it. I'm not saying it's 100% fully accurate, but that's what I do. I also have a template, so I'll go in here to templates, and I have a 5x7 on 8.5 by 11 template right here. And this is just a blank template that I've kind of drawn out from the ruler. So if you have rulers showing in Photoshop, you can just drag from the ruler down and it will allow you to put kind of a line in, like a guideline here. So I have guidelines put in to have a 1/4 inch around the outside and in between the two prints. This is a total of a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch in between each one. And this is measured out to 5x7 to print on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So I will open up that PNG that we just made, and I'm going to drag that onto my template, and it should line straight up because they're at the same DPI. If I still had this at 600 DPI, it would be way too big on this 300 DPI template. So I have to make sure that's there, and then I will just copy and paste this. So we have 2 of them, and now this is ready for a test print. Technically, the smart thing to do would be to do 2 different versions for my initial test print. So if these colors are off, I don't have 2 that are slightly off. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to print 2 of this test print, and then we will look at them and gauge the colors. I can save this template for this specific print, so I have it ready to go if I need to print more of this specific one. I'll make sure this is set to landscape, and I go into print settings to make sure that it's using the proper type of paper here. Media type for this one is a matte photo paper, and I want high quality. I'll click OK, and now I'm just going to hit print, and we will go check our first prints. Now that we've got our first test prints out of the printer, I'm going to lay them next to the original piece, which is now the one on the left, and make some decisions. I can see that the color of the hair is a little bit off, and I can also tell that the color down at the bottom, that brownish reddish color, looks a tiny bit almost muddy or dirty. It's kind of meant to look that way, but this is just a little bit too much. So I'm just looking very closely at the two pieces, deciding what is different that I like, which is okay, and what is different that I want to change or make better. I'm going to cut these test prints anyway. Whenever I have a test print that isn't the final version of the print, I don't necessarily, of course, want to just throw it away. I feel like that would be a waste of paper and a waste of ink. I will just save them. I have like a pile of test prints, and I will slip them into orders as extra little free prints when I have them. I will of course leave links to all of the materials I'm leaving down in the description. Most of the stuff I have here I got from Amazon, so my paper cutter, the paper, my printer, which is the Canon Pixma Pro 100, links are all down in the description. When it came to deciding what kind of paper and printer I wanted to use, the printer was basically something where I was kind of looking to see what other artists were using and going from there. The paper is a bit more trial and error. I knew I wanted a 100% cotton paper with a watercolor-like texture, so I had to try a couple different papers before I found the one that I liked the best. So looking back at my original scan, I'm going to adjust the color balance, and I'm going to push it a little bit from cyan to red, just to get some of the redness back in the hair that we lost. Maybe even see about magenta from green, just a tiny bit. With the goal of getting something a little bit closer to the original. And I feel like that tiny bit of adjustment puts me much closer to what the original looks like. I can really see it here. It's definitely in the magenta green area. There, you can see that. So something right about here is probably going to be much closer. And I want to adjust it again this time to include more of the top. I cut off a lot of the top last time, but I really actually like that particular balancing aspect. So I'm going to crop it a little differently this time too. Making sure to save before I do the crop so I have my master file adjusted with the colors. Okay, so here's our new cropped image, and let's look at that next to what we had before. So here's the one we had made the first time, and you can see there's a bit more green to this, and here's the new version. So old version, new version, old version, new version, and it makes that greenness seem way more evident here. So yeah, always a good idea to have your original handy so you can do quick color checks before you print. I always forget, or I get a bit lazy. So here we've got adjusted colors for our print, and we're going to print another one. Laying the two different versions of this print next to each other, I can definitely see the differences, but at the same time, I have to consider making prints as being part of the creative process. I'm in charge of what I want the colors to look like and what I am happy with as a finished piece. I could spend a lot more time fine-tuning this if I wanted to make it exactly like the original, but I really have to reduce the stress and just make it something that I would be happy to sell. When it comes to packing up my prints, I have a chipboard that goes in the back of each cellophane bag. My plan is, when I'm done with this particular batch of bags, I want to switch to a biodegradable bag and see how that goes. I know there can be issues with biodegradable cellophane bags not being as archival, so they can affect the quality of the print, but it's really just a learning process, and I'm still learning and I'm going to continue to learn, but I can't let the fact that I don't know all of the answers stop me from even starting in the first place. Which is a big tip I would give. If you want to get started, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have things that you will change along the way, but just because you don't know the exact 100% perfect solution doesn't mean you shouldn't start at all. I'm going to put these prints over in a drawer where I keep all of my packaged prints, and off to the side are all of my seconds or my test prints or things that weren't quite perfect that I can give away. If you guys are interested, this print will be up in my shop. Links to all of my materials are down in the description. And another tiny little quick note is that I'm going to be taking a break for a couple of weeks. Could be 2 weeks, could be 3 or 4, not totally sure. But I'm going to still be posting on Instagram and I'm going to be fulfilling Patreon rewards, but I won't be posting YouTube videos for a couple weeks. Just gonna reconnect with my art a bit. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you in a bit. Bye bye!